Hi there, aloha. Welcome to Monday's Nooner. I'm Dave LaMont, and you can find me on YouTube, free subscription, Instagram, doesn't cost anything, and Twitter at Dave Lamont1, also stunningly free. So happy that you are here. Let me move the camera just a little bit, in kind of a different location here. And I'm happy you're able to join me today, because today I want to talk about things and teams that should be feeling really good right now, and teams that should be reaching for the Pepto, reaching for some kind of Imodium, reaching for something that makes them feel a little bit better, because they should not be feeling good at all. So we'll work our way through all of that. First, a couple of things. Nothing on the COVID front. How about that? Usually by now, something has happened on my phone that says such and such has a deal with COVID, and we're all not going to watch them play again. We're good there. Cody Bellinger should be okay for the World Series after he dislocated his shoulder celebrating what turned out to be the game-winning home run and knocking out the Atlanta Braves from the National League Championship Series and setting us up with a two-coast World Series, East Coast, West Coast, LA versus Tampa Bay. Nice little series, like the Dodgers at first blush. And looks like the Mookie Betts things worked out for them pretty well. I imagine we'll get the annual Clayton Kershaw mediocre appearance, so the Dodgers have to be ready to score. I don't know. I cannot figure out, because if you know anything about baseball, you've seen this guy as a dominant force. I mean, just absurd. And yet, for some reason, when it gets to, well, it is October, and when you get to October, he just struggles. I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe it is a mental thing with him. Maybe teams do a better job scouting him, but everybody should have a book on that guy by now. And it just remains one of those bizarro sports mysteries that I can't grab, and I don't think anybody can. So I'm going to go Dodgers there over the Rays. The Dodgers were sort of everybody's favorite when this all began, this mini lobster season of a Major League Baseball season. And it looks like, so they're going to finish. The NBA finished. The NHL finished. Football is going to do everything they can to finish. As you've seen, despite all the postponed games, I think there were 6 last week, including the Florida Gators, and they're not playing this week. They're not playing now till 12 days from here. Halloween is their next game against Missouri, which was postponed from the 24th after the LSU game was postponed because LSU's had 2,578 positive tests on their football team, give or take a few. And the Gators have been running rampant with positive tests. Doesn't mean, by the way, that these are seriously ill people, but a positive test still has to be respected, whether you have mild symptoms or not. So, and for the sake of everybody. So that's why everyone is being so cautious. And college football brings back the Big Ten and the Mountain West this weekend. And we'll see what happens after a couple of weeks of Big Ten and Mountain West team play. Then we get the Pac-12. Then we're going to get the MAC. And pretty soon it's going to be a darn near normal college football season. Of course, it's not. So let's go to my original premise of who should be feeling good about life and who should not be in the world of football. And just starting in state with college football, I'll start a little north of here, UCF, not feeling good. They've now lost to Tulsa and to Memphis. We're not going to be hearing anybody yelling about them being a national championship contender in this bizarre year. And they've clearly have problems on defense, where former Hurricanes head coach and former Gators coordinator Randy Shannon is the defensive coordinator at UCF. So Randy's probably under a little bit of fire there, which I don't care for because I've known Randy a while and I like him a great deal. And I hope he succeeds there. I really, really do. He actually helped recruit our son TJ to go to University of Florida. So I'm rooting for Randy to turn it around. But UCF, not good. Josh Heupel, I don't know how much heat he's under at the moment, but he did inherit a great program, and he's done a terrific job to date keeping it going and keeping it winning. But this is going to be the first stern test for UCF fans in a few years and for their program in a few years. They've been living large with all their winning lately, and their talk of contending for a national title after getting a share of one from one service a few years ago. And of course, every time they lose, man, they get roasted by everyone for win the national title kind of thing. That's never going to grow old, and it's never going to stop either. If you're Florida State, hey, listen, I've been super critical of Florida State, and for good reason. But that's a nice win over North Carolina. North Carolina, for half the game, looked like they shouldn't have been ranked 500th, never mind where they were in the top 5. And then they came on. And if their receivers could have caught 2 passes at the end of the game, we might have had a different result. Might have. Still would have been tough for them to score, but you got to catch the ball. So for Florida State, that's a good one. I remember they did show some signs of life against Notre Dame on the road. Now they were home, and that's a good win for Mike Norvell. That's not what I would call a signature win, but they needed something against a real team, and they got it. Let's see what they do from there with it. But for them, yes, you have to feel 50% better if you're Florida State. They looked fast. And I realized when you play Miami-Florida State game, both teams are fast. Against North Carolina, they looked fast. They swarmed on defense in the first half. Now, the second half, obviously, North Carolina, they're not exactly inexperienced in the coaching department. They made some nice adjustments and made this into what looked like a horrifying blowout into a very competitive game and nearly a Tar Heels victory. So Mac Brown just simply said, we made too many mistakes, and they did. But again, feeling good. If you're Florida, you feel humbled and embarrassed. At least you should. And really, humbled and embarrassed should be the head coach, Dan Mullen. Didn't really talk anything because I believe his COVID diagnosis didn't come until the weekend. I didn't talk about it Friday. But he really stuck his neck out. And unfortunately for him, it got handed back to him. If he wanted more fans, then they shut the program down, and then he gets the symptoms. Now, again, all indications are it's not serious, and naturally, everybody should be wishing Dan Mullen an immediate recovery and to get things back to normal in Gainesville for the sake of those student athletes and those who are trying to play. But they're off again this week, so they've got 2 weeks to rest and prepare for Mizzou, or 2 weeks to forget how to play football and not be ready for Missouri. That's a major challenge for the coaches, and flexibility has been the biggest word in athletics in this pandemic. So if I'm a Gator fan, I'm puzzled because is that going to fix their defensive problems? Their offense has just been stunning. Kyle Trask has been incredible. This might have actually damaged his Heisman Trophy chances. And I believe he was a contender for it. I really do. But at this point, you've got to be humble and humbled over what has happened. And it'll be interesting to see if that happens with Mullen when he starts to come out in the public eye again, whenever that is, whenever his doctors say it's okay. Strange how karma works, isn't it? If you're the University of Miami, you should feel very good. Here's why. I talked about this Friday. That the game against Pitt, which I got confused and said it was up there, but it's actually in South Florida, was a must-win game because these were the games that Miami had blown in the past, going into Louisville. Now, it turns out Louisville has only got one win this year. But when Miami played them, Louisville looked potentially very dangerous. They were good last year. We kind of were going on last year's results. Well, Louisville's down a little bit, clearly. However, how many of these games against these weaker teams has Miami blown over the years, going back to Al Golden and even Mark Richt and Manny Diaz last year? A lot of them. Never mind the mostly awful, embarrassing performances in bowl games. So no Hurricane fan should take anything for granted right now. But beating Pitt, and I don't give a hoot about the score, it's just win, baby, all right? You have to enjoy that. They took care of business against a team that the odds makers thought they were going to beat. Whatever it's worth, I thought they were going to beat, and I'm sure they thought they were going to beat. Same thing with Virginia coming in here. Virginia's not sharp this year. They're 1-3. I'll never understand why Bronco Mendenhall left BYU, where he could have stayed there forever, unless he just didn't want to stay there forever. That's pretty obvious. I guess he didn't. And he can't win a national title at BYU. Well, you can't win at Virginia either. So he's sitting in a 1-3 situation, coming to South Florida to take on the Hurricanes. Again, if all is right with Miami, they should win. They are 4-1. They're not one of the great teams in college football, but they're good. D'Eriq King had one pass that was deflected because he's not very tall, and Pitt has some gigantic linemen. Another pass, didn't read it right, made a mistake. Defensively, not as good. The running game, well, they killed some good time, but average not even 3 yards a carry. So it's not a perfect team by any means, but they're winning. And, dude, that's what counts. In Hurricane world, winning is the only thing. And winning games, Clemson, you're not going to win that. And by the way, if Miami somehow gets into the ACC title game and plays Clemson, they're not going to win that one either, unless something happens to Trevor Lawrence. So don't worry about that. Right now, you've got to beat the teams that are with you before you start aiming up. And Miami has done that to date. Virginia is another one. Better be 5-1 after this. Virginia comes in 1-3. Period. FAU, FIU, the Owls were off. FIU had a game against Charlotte postponed. So it's impossible to get a gauge on those teams. FAU has a brutal task this week at Marshall. Marshall's 14.5-point favorite in that game. And we just don't know about the Owls, and neither do they. So they should feel, well, happy that they're playing. How about that? Because they have had an awful time. We talked about a week ago with our guests, Frank Fort and Ken LaVicka. So let's do the NFL version of who should be feeling good and who should not be feeling good. And I'll start right here with your Miami Dolphins. Feeling good. They have kicked the teeth out of 2 straight teams. Admittedly, one of them was the Jets. But that 49ers game looks a lot better after what the Niners did yesterday to the Rams. I still am sticking by my bold prediction that the 49ers aren't going back to the Super Bowl. And I don't think the Dolphins are going to be there yet. But if you want to buy stock and trend in the right direction and all those other cliches, there's one for you right there. The Dolphins are clearly trending in the right direction, going into a bye week before a fascinating matchup with the Chargers. He even got Tua Tagovailoa on the field, albeit in a mop-up role. But it was meaningful for him. He FaceTimed with his parents when he went back out on the field, and there's a great picture of him just staying on the field. There's nobody out there but him. You have to remember, a year ago, roughly, a little less than a year ago, we were not even sure he could play football again because of the severity of the injury he suffered. He has put in a tremendous amount of time, rehab, worry, any kind of doubts he might have had, pain, and he's gotten to this point. He's not the number one quarterback right now. You're good there, okay? You should feel good about Ryan Fitzpatrick. You should feel good that the Patriots are not sharp. Now, Patriots have a game in hand, but that means they're going to be shoving in a bunch of games while other teams are resting. Offensively, they're not good. They're banged up. They're not the same. My dog has decided to join the show, so anything could happen from me. Hi, sweetie. So we have a opening. Buffalo plays the Chiefs. Probably going to be 4-2. Remember they started out 4-0, and then Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans smoked them. And then they scored 1,000 points in beating Houston yesterday. So Buffalo could only have a 1-game advantage, although they do have basically a 2-game advantage because they beat the Dolphins earlier in the year. The Dolphins are in the playoff race. Whether they get there, I'm not ready to call that just yet, but they're in the race. If you're the Patriots and the Jets, especially the Jets, you know what? If you're a Jets fan, I feel badly for you, and I don't mean, I'm not even trying to be sarcastic. Just keep losing, get Trevor Lawrence, and start from there. Obviously, you're going to have to change head coaches. Getting rid of Adam Gase now, I don't know if that's going to do you any good. Unless he starts walking around to the facility and drops his pants in the middle of the place, you might as well just hang on to him. And start, you know what you should do? Start now. Start searching now for who you would like to see as a head coach. Do you want to go the assistant route? Some assistants have worked out. Others haven't. Or are we going to go with the rehired head coach route? That one doesn't always work out. So a guy like a Dan Quinn, who just got fired in Atlanta, Bill O'Brien just got fired in Houston. I don't think you want to do that. But if I'm the Jets, I am taking names since you're not kicking butt. If you're Kansas City, you're just fine. So you lost a game last week. Big deal. Right? No big deal, right? Nah, I didn't think you cared. So you've got that. You've got Pat Mahomes. You've got an offense that can score multiple ways. You're fine, okay? Now, the Las Vegas Raiders ought to feel pretty good about themselves. For a quarterback who isn't popular with his head coach, Derek Carr's done okay for himself, all right? He's done just fine. They're 3-2. They beat the Chiefs, handed the Chiefs their first loss. They have, too, a prolific offense. They got a great running back in Josh Jacobs. So they're okay. Better than Denver, although Denver won yesterday, and certainly better than the Chargers, but the Chargers have uncovered Justin Herbert. Now, the Chargers can't win a close game to save their life. But what Miami fans were hoping for with Tua, the Chargers are getting with Justin Herbert. That's why when the Chargers come here at 1-4 at the moment, they were off this week, so they'll be either 1-5 or 2-4. That's going to be a fascinating game, but it's not going to be Tua Herbert. It's going to be Herbert Fitzpatrick, and we'll see. The Chargers, that's a tough game for the Dolphins. That's not going to be an easy one for them. The two teams that should feel the absolute most macho about themselves right now in the entire AFC is Pittsburgh and Baltimore, who clearly look to be the two best teams. And, of course, they're in the same division, so they'll have some titanic games yet to come against each other. But the Steelers haven't lost yet, and they just squeezed Cleveland like a sponge and took every drop of moisture out of the Browns yesterday, who were 4-1 coming in. And Baker Mayfield's beat up. Is he good enough to get them to the next level? Nobody seems to know the answer to that, least of all Baker Mayfield. So feel good if you're Browns. I'm a little sick to my stomach. If I'm the Ravens and the Steelers, I am walking through with my shirt off right in the middle of the mall, man. I feel really good about myself. And the Bengals, they blew one yesterday, but Joe Burrow should make you feel good if you're a Bengal fan, which happens to be my brother-in-law and my wife. That's pretty – and Rob, the producer, who was on talking about Eddie Van Halen last week. Those are the only real Bengals fans I know. Well, wait a minute. My wife's grandmother. Yeah, she lives in Cincinnati. Okay, there's 4. So I'm still not feeling too terrible if I'm the Bengals. And if I'm Tennessee at 5-0 with MVP candidate Ryan Tannehill, I'm not joking about that, by the way. That guy's rolling right now. And it looks like a case of a guy who just needed to get the heck out of Dodge. In this case, Dodge being here, South Florida. Derrick Henry looks like he's back in high school again. Go find Derrick Henry's high school senior year stats on Google. Just Google it. Let me know when you're done, and let me know when you're stopped laughing. Indy, nice win. Not sold on them, even though they're 4-2. Not sold. Need more evidence. Houston and Jacksonville. What was the old Bill Parcells line? If I'm expected to cook the meal, I should be able to shop for the groceries. Well, that sounds great if you're Emeril Lagasse. But if you're Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans, not so good. So that failed. And Jacksonville, we kind of knew they were going to be terrible, and they haven't let us down one bit. So you shouldn't feel even remotely good about that. Now, in the NFC, the division-leading Dallas Cowboys play tonight against Arizona, who's 3-2. And if you're the Cowboys, you are leading the division at 2-3. You're not feeling good. You've lost your quarterback, although you were fortunate enough to have a competent replacement in Andy Dalton. You can score on any defense in pro football, and there are high schools who could come into Dallas and score on you. That's how bad their defense is. How that happens, I couldn't tell you. But they face a massive financial issue with Dak Prescott and his contract, and it's not a good feeling. Even if they do somehow win that division by default, the two sweetest words in the English language, copyright Homer Simpson, then it's still Philadelphia, the Giants, the Washington Football Club, which is just a disaster right now. Between all the stuff that's going on off the field with lawsuits and sexual harassment charges, to the problems with Dwayne Haskins, who was ill and couldn't play Sunday. It's even with Alex Smith and the feel-good story of him coming back into action last week, it's just a disaster down there. The head coach is ill with cancer, and they lost to the Giants in a battle of, very bad football teams. The Giants finally got a win, the first New York area team to win a game this season. The Jets aren't going to win one. Jets shouldn't even try to win one. They should start forfeiting. So that division, it is what it is. In the West, the best team in the NFC is probably Seattle. And the MVP candidate that I would vote for, if I had a vote, would be Russell Wilson. The Seahawks quarterback has been incredible. It doesn't matter what the Seahawks do in the first three quarters. If there's anything needed done in the fourth, he does it. Guy's remarkable. And Pete Carroll's letting him go. For the first time in that relationship, Pete Carroll has just said, yeah, I'm good. Go ahead, Russ. I'm going to be over here bouncing around chewing gum. And it's worked out beautifully for Seattle. And the Wilson-Metcalf combo is devastating. It's a good football team. Best in the NFC at the moment. The Rams are a surprising 4-2. They should have been 5-1, but somehow San Francisco beat them. And that is a great win for the Niners and a great win for the Dolphins, as I mentioned earlier. And Arizona should beat the Cowboys tonight. And Kyler Murray could get 700 total yards against that defense, like 400 passing and 300 rushing. He is a weapon. And it looks like the Cliff Kingsbury hiring has worked out. And it looks like drafting Kyler Murray is working out. So if you're Arizona, I think you have to be in the feel-good column, do you not? In the North, did you know the Bears were 5-1? They do, I think. Even with the quarterback issues they had, and probably still do have, they're 5-1. That's, it's hard not to miss the playoffs at 5-1. I suppose they could do it, but they seem to have a pretty good defense and just enough on offense to get by. The Packers, who just got embarrassed yesterday, were 4-0. And should they still be feeling good? Not like they did before they kicked off in Tampa Bay on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers was on what the media was calling his revenge tour, because people have been writing Aaron Rodgers off for a while, which is just silly, but they were. And then he goes and proves as to why they've been writing him off by having a bad game. While Tom Brady didn't necessarily have a great game, but he finds Rob Gronkowski, and Brady and the Bucs are doing okay at 4-2. But sticking with the rest of the division, the Lions and the Vikings have an explosive offense. They've got this kid Jefferson from LSU, Adam Thielen. They've got Dalvin Cook, although he didn't play because he's hurt. And they also have Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is openly talking about, if I don't start getting it together, I'm going to lose my job. Vikings have one win. And also their defense, which was 2 or 3 years ago, was really good, is not getting it done at all. They gave up a boatload of points to the Falcons yesterday. Detroit is Detroit. I'm not going to bother. I don't enjoy it. I know plenty of people who were Lions fans. As a kid, my mother's side of the family, all from the Detroit area, all rooted for the Lions. I didn't know any better to tell them not to do it. Had I known what I know now, I would have told them to walk away. But okay, so they beat Jacksonville yesterday. They really should be a 4, maybe a 5-win team, but they're not. I talked about Tampa Bay, New Orleans having the strangest season of a team that's 3-2. They have managed to look absolutely horrible in every one of their wins. And of course, in their 2 losses, and yet somehow they yank it out. Every week we hear that Drew Brees is washed up, and yet he rallies them to a victory. Is he at his best? No. But apparently good enough. Carolina, no opinion. Can't figure him out. They're surviving without Christian McCaffrey. They're just good enough. They're 3-3, and they're exactly a 3-3 football team. Not good, not terrible. Atlanta, we know already. Hey, they won one. Woo! For their new interim coach, who ought to be considered for the real job, by the way. But they're 1-5. They're a mess, and they should not feel good. So there you have it. The two teams that should be absolutely the cockiest are Pittsburgh and Seattle. They haven't lost. Steelers are winning with a big-time defense, and their offense has exploded the last couple of weeks thanks to Chase Claypool. Seattle's defense is not like it used to be, but their offense, and again, you have a guy who is willing them to victory in Russell Wilson. I wonder if that defense, which has been is going to catch up to them. So to sum everything up, feeling good, I say in South Florida, the Dolphins and the Hurricanes. Up north, Seminoles feeling better. The Gators, hopefully not feeling any symptoms of COVID-19. UCF, not feeling good. They're going to have to take a humbling this year, it looks like. Well, I can only hope that you're feeling good. I'm okay. My dog, who moved over here because she's tired of the sound of my voice unless I'm feeding her, which will be happening very shortly, as she is a relentless dining companion, if you know what I mean. She's feeling good, too, after a few visits to the vet. Anyway, trust you are too. I'm going to see if I can get myself somebody to talk to on Friday. Got a guy in mind, and we'll talk a little bit more football. Enjoy the World Series. Coming up on Tuesday is game 1. Again, I'm going to go Dodgers, let's say in 6. Should be fun. Kind of like this Tampa team. Overachieving against a team that was expected to be there. It's always a good contrast. So I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed today's Nooner. I'll be back during the week with Almost Daily Daves. That will do it for now, and I'll talk to you soon. This will be up on YouTube as well. Remember to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See ya.